discretion is advised. Some content may be inappropriate for anyone under the age of 18. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not reflect the department's views in any way.
Good morning. My name is James McDermott. I'm your Nassau County PBA president, and we're here today with our second NassauPBA Proud podcast. I think the first one was pretty good. I had fun with it. Today I'm joined by Pete Paterson, the Nassau County PBA first vice president, who is also our lobbyist up in Albany. Pete's been up there for about 17 years, and he's been doing our lobbying at the highest level, and I'm not just saying that. He will be speaking about recent legislation up in Albany, and later on I think he'll be talking about the tier system. Morning, Pete.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, man.
First of all, I'd like to say this is a great idea. I think Kenny and Tommy came up with this, I believe, and I think it's a great way to have a conversation with our members. Due to the COVID, due to the size of our job in the county, it's important to reach out to our members as much as we can. So I congratulate you on this idea.
Thank you. And you know what, for our members out there and our associate members, retired members, any questions that you have about anything PBA related, keep it to PBA, please. If they can be directed to NassauPBA at NassauPBA.org. All right, Pete, go ahead. You're up.
Well, as you stated, I've been representing not only us, but other groups in Albany for the last 16, 17 years. I'm the chairman of the legislative committee for the New York State Association of PBAs. It's not only us, the detectives and the SOAs are members. We also have Port Authority, MTA, several New York City units, and several Suffolk units. It's an important committee. We especially this trying times. You know the attack on law enforcement we face, both federally, nationally, locally, and statewide. For us to be up there and have a strong presence is more now than ever before in our history. There are a lot of legislative items being pushed that we feel hinder our members, may even put them in dangerous scenarios. There's a lot of conversations going back and forth, and we feel that police, if there's legislation that's going to affect police officers directly, obviously police officers like myself and my committee should be directly involved in those conversations.
No doubt.
So that's what we do. We're up there, whether it's in person or virtual. Obviously, I know you, Tommy and Kenny and Billy, they will miss me when I go up there. Although Tommy seems to have that. Tommy seems to be able to track me pretty easy. But like I said, this last year, due to COVID and due to the other things, it's been trying. We've been meeting virtually, but we have been meeting and we have been getting our message across. It's important because there's very few people in Albany or in Washington lobbying on behalf of police officers. So that's what you send me up there to do primarily. So what we're doing now is our first and foremost goal, especially in Albany and Washington, is pushing back and fighting against a lot of this anti-police sentiment and some of these bills that are going against police officers. There's a discussion about qualified immunity. It's going to make it easy to sue police officers. Obviously, we know as cops, when we go out to do our job each and every day, we're facing stressful situations. No one wants to do any harm to anybody unless absolutely necessary. And ending qualified immunity as we know it is going to be dangerous for our police officers. They're going to hesitate when they go out to do what they have to do. They don't do it on the thought process that they're not going to get sued or not. They're doing it because they're either going to save their lives or some innocent victims. There's other issues, obviously, that we're following, particularly up in Albany. The conversation has to be with police officers. People don't know, people that are not cops don't walk in our shoes. They don't know what we're faced. They don't know what we're feeling, in a stressful situation. And it's like I said before, it's our job, my job and my committee's job to bring that voice to protect our members. We're also up there too. Obviously, we're trying to, over the years, the pension system. We discussed this, especially with the new officers. The pension system changed over the years, so that there's actually three tiers now, and the tier 5 and tier 6 members, the newer members, their pension is limited, when they retire, unlike ours, and that shouldn't be. Years ago, we used to have a tier. Well, we still have a tier 1, but
Very few left.
Yeah, right.
They're about 100.
Yeah, and but remember when me and you came on
Yes,
the job?
it was mostly tier 1,
And what was the hue and cry from the tier 2 guys?
trying to get tier 1 benefits.
Correct.
We were chasing them our whole career. And we were successful
Yes.
with a few things. And I know you were involved with the 32-year bill when Kenny Long was here, and he was the first
Yes.
vice president. You
That was-
you assisted him with that. Back when Pete and I got a job back in the 80s, the most that you can retire with would be 66.6 or 7%, 2/3 of your pension after 30 years, and the 32-year bill brought us to 70%. So that was not exactly what Tier 1 had, because that you want to discuss what Tier 1 had, but we ate into the difference between the two of us.
Yeah, the tier 1 basically had a higher rate going out the door. It's also the disability. At one point, we didn't have a 3/4 disability. We gained that back. We gained the death gamble back, which basically, God forbid, when our members pass, whether it's in the line of duty or not, that their children and their families are taken care of, because this benefit is more in equity to the tier 1.
3/4 benefit? With
The
line?
3/4 benefits, tier 5 and tier 6 have all those. However, like I said, the limitations on the final average salary, which most of the members are aware of. It's my job to try and correct that, if you will, inequity. And we have a bill in, as we speak now, it's in the Senate, and it's going to be sponsored in the Assembly, to remove that 15% limitation and move it up to 30%. The committee decided to go with that number because it proves it vastly, but it also, realistically, we can get that done. And over the years, it's like a stepping stone, like what we did with tier 2 rather, to fix it to tier 1. We're slowly but surely trying to do tier 5 and tier 6 and get it back as close as possible to tier 2. We have that bill, and we have a lot of military members, right?
Oh, yes.
They serve our country. They're honorably. I always have trouble saying that. Honorably discharged. And they come, and now they're serving our state as police officers. They're able to buy some of their military time for their pension. Well, the tier 6 guys have to pay a higher amount than the rest of the tiers, and that's just inherently unfair. They served in the same Army, Marine Corps, and they come back and stand side by side with another officer, and he's got to pay more than the other officer. So we're trying to, the military guys know that, they pay 3% per year purchased. Tier 6, they pay 6%.
Yeah, not fair.
And it's not fair. So we have legislation sponsoring that to go back to 3% to make it, like I said, bring the tiers in more equity. That's our primary goal. We have a couple of other different things like health and safety. We have, believe it or not, over the last 5 or 6 years, or maybe more, there's a national law. It's called the Blue Alert, and it basically, God forbid, one of our members are killed or injured in the line of duty. There's a whole infrastructure that gets set in motion to help catch the bad guy, if you will, and it goes state to state to state. The way the legislation was written, we have to join in. Basically, we have to have a local law to join in, and we've had this local law in for the last couple of years, and believe it or not, it hasn't gotten passed. This year, we have assurance that it will get passed and it'll be enacted. That's just one more, thing to help law enforcement, especially when, it's not that long ago. We had that we lost 5 officers in the line of duty, remember?
Yeah.
In 22
Terrible
months.
times. Yep.
Kind of like, it sobers you up and wakes you up to like how dangerous, when we go to, the different funerals and everything, it and you see it, but when it hits home, it really hits home. And we always tell the officers, I know, like, Tommy is good when he does a presentation to the young recruits. Always remind them, you got to be careful. You got to take every situation like you're in a police scenario. You're in a uniform. Everybody knows who you are and what you're doing, and it's
Things can get bad fast. Pete, you know what? You spoke about qualified immunity. Why don't we go back to that? Why don't you discuss exactly what that is for the people that don't know what it is? Maybe we could talk a little bit about went on with the city and the city council, and we we all know when we were watching television that the city police department there. Retirements are up 75% this year, and I think it has a lot to do with the qualified immunity.
Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, what's going on in the city, we see that their city council is already passing the initial stages of ending some of our rights, as we know them. Qualified immunity is one of them. We know as police officers, we have an enormous responsibility in carrying out what we do, and we know we have to do the right thing, and we know. We have to go out there and protect people. But over the years, the courts and the legislature, they recognize that things are done in split decisions. And then you look back, you look at all the cameras, you slowly go over the things, and people have hours, days, if not weeks, to examine what you had 2 seconds
If that.
to analyze. And like I say, a police officer, the courts and the people and the legislature recognize that. They said, listen, we hold them, and they do. We're still held accountable. We are still, and rightfully so. If I'm involved in a shooting and it was a bad shooting and I was clearly wrong, I am held accountable, and rightfully so. But with qualified immunity, it's taking it where it's going to make it easier to sue the individual officer, and basically, like over a split-second decision. It's a life and death situation. Like when the legislature's passed laws, it takes weeks, months, if not years. They have the time to analyze it, research it. What if we do this? What's the end result, right? Could there be bad or good, right? Our offices, we have seconds, and it's a stressful period of time. What we have now in scenario doesn't give the green light for the officer to do anything he wants.
No.
We still have restrictions. We have the penal law, we have the CPL,
Yep.
and the county can be held liable with lawsuits. We feel that it more like it directs it on the personal responsibility of the officer, and we don't feel that it doesn't need to be addressed at this time. There's police reform going on all over the country. Certain things that they're addressing, but I don't want to get to a point where police officers are going to be
This is
nervous to do their job.
too far to an extreme, because not only does it hamstring the police officer, it hamstrings the department. You're going to be afraid. You're in these these decisions that you have to make in a couple of seconds. You're going to be thinking about how this might affect you personally instead of handling the situation. When you're threatened with losing everything, it clouds your mind. When you have to be clear, because we deal with life or death situations. Unfortunately, nobody's crying about it. You put your hand in the air. You swore to do this job and do it the best you can. But bringing it to this level is just putting too much pressure on a police officer. And I think that's a big problem that we have in the country now, because you're hamstringing the police officers, and a lot of times it goes from a situation where it's like this and it goes like that, like in a second, because everything that used to be in between is gone. And we're like I said, Pete was saying, we're working, and Pete's working diligently in Albany. We were involved nationally. We're, like Pete says, we're involved here on a local level. We're always trying to protect the police officers' rights so they can do a better job for the community and keep the community safe. I think that's what's getting lost in the sauce. When you keep hamstringing the police officers, they can't do their job efficiently or correctly.
You hit the nail on the head, because I've always said this. I talk directly with the congressmen and senators over this discussion about the police reform, and we have a frank but honest discussion. But it's like I said, there's going to be certain things, changes made, and certain things. It's odd, but what they're doing is changing our craft, whether good, bad, or indifferent. We should be like, if you're gonna, like, let's say you're gonna change a medical procedure. Some company says that procedure don't work. Says we're gonna ask everybody their opinion except for the doctors that do the procedure. It doesn't make any sense. So listen, and I've had conversations, both good and bad. But my committee will sit down with any elected official in this state, anyone, any elected official within the country that's going to affect nationally. We're part of, like you said, we're part of NAPO, the National Association of Police Organizations. It's a very important group in Washington. They're there every single day to bring our voice, and they're right now as we speak. They're trying to bring our voice into this discussion. It's a big issue right now in this country. And like I say,
how many police officers are what are we up to right now in NAPO? How many hundreds of thousands?
I think there's over 200,000. I couldn't tell you the offhand.
I thought it was over 3, actually.
It could be. Call me a liar for 100. Yeah, it's a big organization. It's either the largest or the second largest in the United States. Mm-hmm. We have members from California, Texas, Florida, Jersey, obviously, and New York, and throughout the rest of the United States. It's a very important, very strong organization. But like I said, there's a very very big conversation going on in this country right now with police reform, and we just want to be part of it. That's all. We want to have it. We want, because you know what, we bring a different perspective. Like I was never a fireman. I don't know what it's like to go into a fire, and God bless them. That
I have no interest in being a fireman.
Yeah. But then firemen don't know what we do.
No, not at all.
And there's other other legislation. We have we have a heart bill clarification. We're trying to. Some of our members, they unfortunately suffered heart disease and had cardiac issues with the, and we feel obviously it's due to the stress of our job. Like, when cops talk to each other, they don't say what story they had about this, because I know you had that, But when a civilian hears you over here talking, says, "What'd you do this morning?" "Well, I had breakfast, this and that, went to work out, had an alarm, then I had a baby not breathing, fortunately didn't make it," or you had, listen, cops are human beings. When they pick up a baby not breathing, it's no different than anybody else picking up. We have to act, obviously, like the medical personnel. We got to try and save that baby, do everything we can. But we're still fathers, brothers. We're still looking at this little poor thing, and if you think a cop drives away from that and says, "Boy, that wasn't much of a morning," it lingers on. And like I said, every cop sitting in this room, unfortunately, has been in that scenario, and it's stressful. It's stressful doing CPR on anybody when you're watching a person die, and then you got to go home and go to your son's baseball,
Right.
So
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think you can stress that enough of what police officers go through on a daily basis. I remember when I was a 20-year veteran on the street, and we had a situation in Elmont where a DWI crossed lanes in traffic and went head-on and hit a woman with kids going to soccer practice, and the car went on fire. All the mother and the children were all perished in the fire, and couldn't get them out, and it was just horrible. And I had a young cop come up to me. He goes, because I'm at the scene doing traffic. He goes, "Did you get down there to see what happened?" And I'm like, "I've seen enough crap in my life. Yeah. I have no interest in going down there and seeing that and having that that wear on me to go with everything else that you saw in 20 years. I mean, people have to understand we've done things and seen things and have been involved in things that nobody really wants to be involved with. Nobody wants to talk about, and like Pete says, it wears on us. And that's the stuff that I don't think people understand, is that we're humans. We're your neighbor, we're your cousin, we're your uncle, we're your football, basketball coach. We're just like everybody else in the neighborhood, and we're humans too. And to say you're a police officer and that puts you in some sort of category separate than the rest of the world, that's not true. I'm American, New Yorker, Long Island, Nassau County, Levittown guy. I mean, I'm not, and I don't just think of myself as a police officer, and I don't, I think of myself as a person just like everybody else. I'm getting that nod, that 20-minute nod that we're at.
I was told Tommy had more time than me, but that's okay.
We'll bring you
obviously
back.
Tommy's a rock star now.
We'll bring you back, Pete.
Okay.
Well, I want to say thank you. This has been fun. Thank you, Pete. Thank you very much for your everything you brought to this podcast. And I want to say to our members, just be safe out there and direct those questions to us, and we'll answer them. Thank you again, Pete.
That's the same thing. And if anybody, like the newer guys, have any questions on the pension systems, I have a bunch of names that I'm still trying to get back to, but they can call me at the PBA office, and Jackie and the girls will get in touch with me. I'll get right back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Today's sponsor was Gennaro Jewelers in Belmore, Gary Udes, proprietor.